Boss, we tried hunting the Silver Eye Ice Snake King once before with Black God. We didn't succeed, as it was far too difficult. In the domain of that wretched creature, the efficiency of our powers was dampened and subdued. To be surrounded by snakes is no small task. It is wickedly dangerous. A few of the elites that had accompanied Black God in the hunt had their faces contort with fear, as they heard Han Sen's plan to venture there and slay the beast. They attempted to change his mind. I have already made my decision. Stop the chatter and follow my commands, Han Sen responded coldly. At this, some of the elites lost hope. Dong Lin and Han Sen had already come to an agreement, so for this task, those who had been selected had no choice but to accompany him. Han Sen brought 10 people with him to Ice Snake Valley. They all reached their destination in fine health. On the snow fields they now treaded, movement from beneath the snow could be seen. It was movement from a silver-white ice snake, tunneling forward like a rabid earthworm. The ice snakes were white, with eyes of deadly silver. When they were submerged in the piles of snow, they were camouflaged and nearly impossible to see. A well-armed person might be able to withstand the bite of an ordinary ice snake, but if they were to be bitten by a mutant variant, it wouldn't matter if their fitness level was over 100. Succumbing to such a bite would freeze you in no time at all. Those 10 evolvers were over 100, but their great talents did little to stave off their fear. They did their best to delay and drag out the venture there, taking their time as if their life depended on it. Because it did. Han Sen noticed this, but wasn't upset. Instead, he smiled and said, "Well, how about this? You don't have to risk your lives and enter the valley. I will go alone to draw out the Silver Eye Ice Snake King. I will lure it all the way here, so that we can fight it together, free from the intrusions of the other snakes. But there is something I must tell you first. If I draw out the Silver Eye Ice Snake King, and someone decides to flee, do not blame me for being cruel in my response to your desertion. Even Dong Lin will be unable to help out any cowards that run." Han Sen eyed each of them coldly. In response, one of the evolvers said, "Do not worry, boss. We aren't like that. We will do our best to help you slay it." Though his mouth said that, his heart felt something else. Like the rest, he believed that if Han Sen truly ventured there alone, he wouldn't be coming back. They initially believed that Han Sen might have wings and was planning to fly into the valley to draw the Snake King out. It was nearly impossible for someone to walk down there. The depth of the snow was greater than any man, and if you were to sink into it when trying to walk on top of it, you'd be sinking into a white grave occupied by unwelcoming snakes. It would be certain death. If Han Sen could fly, he would fare better, but not by much. The ice snakes also possessed the ability to fly, and so an unbalanced dogfight would quickly ensue. Although they couldn't fly too high, for as long as he would be in the ice valley, it would be impossible for him to escape their pursuit. That's why they thought Han Sen's decision to go in, alone, was a suicidal move. But there he went, walking into the valley. Without wings, Han Sen had learnt the talent Ice Skin, however, and so was unafraid of being frostbitten. That's not to say he planned on getting bitten by the snakes, though. As he stepped into the ice valley, Han Sen leapt into a sprint. As he ran, his footsteps were so slight that they only left a shallow indent in the snow, and you could only trace them by paying close attention. Although Han Sen's body was really light, it still drew the attention of the ice snakes. He noticed 2 ice snakes leaping out from their white, powdery crypts to attack him. The silver-scaled creatures glistened in blinding white beneath the sun of that day. They stretched their bodies and spread their wings like giant cicadas. They dive-bombed towards Han Sen but missed, and so twirled in the air to try again. Han Sen had read the profiles of the snakes before, and knew that the ice snakes had wings. Although they could not fly high, they had incredibly strong gliding abilities. Because of this, he knew he could not risk slowing down, so he pushed forward, dodging the snakes that lashed towards him. He didn't kill the 2 ice snakes because he only wanted to draw the ire of the Snake King and lead it out. If he killed the 2 ice snakes, the scent of their blood would rally every other snake in the valley. And if that happened, he would be in big trouble. He ignored the 2 chasing snakes and continued to push onward. A few other snakes occasionally joined the fray, but they did not pose much of a threat to Han Sen. As he glided along the snow, he continued to dodge every attack as he pushed into the canyon. The snowy mountain was 100 miles long, and all Han Sen knew was that the Snake King was in some sort of icy cave in the middle of the valley. Weird. Shouldn't the ice cave be around the 30-mile mark? I've already been running for 40 miles. Why haven't I seen it yet? Han Sen was puzzled. By now, 1,000 ice snakes were chasing him. He was lucky that he was skilled enough to outpace and dodge every snake that attacked him. But as time went on, he reached a narrow gulf where steep icy slopes tunneled him forward. Yet he still couldn't see an ice cave. The group of ice snakes that had been giving him chase was now significantly smaller. As he traveled further, more and more snakes abandoned the chase, until a few miles later they were all gone. A chill took Hansen's heart, and he said, "Is this the Snake King's territory? Do they not dare venture near it?" But that didn't feel right, either. If he had truly arrived where the Snake King was, the ice snakes should have been protecting their king. They shouldn't have been running away. Hansen thought there was something wrong with the ice valley. Something must have happened that had changed it. He looked around, but was unable to see what was outside the ice valley. Because of the snow around him, he couldn't detect the presence of further ice snakes. What's more, a deafening silence now permeated the atmosphere of the valley. The sun was choked by clouds, and more snow began to fall. "I've already come this far, I can't turn back now." Hansen didn't want to give up just yet, so he gritted his teeth and pushed on. He had a berserk sacred blood wing, so he could always fly away. The ice snakes, if they decided to resume their chase, wouldn't be able to catch him that way. As such, there was nothing to be afraid of. Hansen walked another 20 miles without finding a single snake. After his arduous trek, he reached an ice wall in front of him. It was smooth, but to his right and left, an array of lethal glaciers boxed him in. He had now reached the end of the canyon. Suddenly, Hansen was able to make out the presence of an ice cave in the wall of ice in front of him. It wasn't what he expected, however, as it was 3 meters tall and only 1 meter wide. It looked strange, being so tall and so thin. He didn't see anything from the entrance, so he summoned his golden armor and glyph. After doing so, he ventured inside. The ice cave wasn't too deep. After walking a few miles, he had reached the end. Once he got there, the narrow cave opened into a wide cavern. Hansen hadn't faced any danger or come across a single creature on his way there. In the icy hall, Hansen noticed the presence of an egg that was about half the height of a fully grown human. Its silver hue made it look metallic, and its glossy exterior was adorned with a variety of finely engraved patterns. Hansen felt happy at making this discovery. He ran towards the egg and said, "Haha, the gods must love me. I can't believe I have found such an egg. It must belong to the Snake King." Hansen knew that it was difficult for creatures to bear children. Golden roars exhausted all they could to produce offspring, and they imparted their young with their geno essence. Doing so always led to the willing deaths of their mothers. But the cavern and ice cave were entirely clear, and there was no sign of the Snake King. To Hansen, this was a golden opportunity, and he did not hesitate to reach out his hand to touch the metallic, silver egg. Hansen's fingertips recoiled at receiving an electric shock. The hair on his fingers now stood on end. The charge that had shot into his body made him take 2 steps back, and he almost fell over. "My God, what is this egg? Why is it electric?" Hansen's eyes were wide open, staring at the egg in puzzled confusion. He then saw how the eggshell's patterns were highlighted, but from its previously bright appearance, was now turning dim. Hansen eyed the egg with suspicion. He had eaten numerous eggs in the past, but never seen an egg quite like this. While he was thinking, a noise came from outside. Hansen was startled, thinking that the Snake King had returned. He pricked up his ears to listen, but all he could hear were the sounds of human footsteps. Hansen frowned, looking out towards the cave entrance. The guys he had brought with him had not dared come this way, so whoever it was, they weren't associated with Hansen or his Snake King excursion that day. Taking a look, Hansen saw a person with blue armor, black hair, and white wings enter the cave. As he had suspected, it wasn't one of the evolvers that he had left behind. But, to his comfort, it was someone he knew. Dongmu. Hansen watched him curiously, and then called out his name. He had never expected to see him here, but judging from his apparel, he had just flown in. It was fortunate that this place had no ice snakes, for flying in like that would have given him a rude welcome. "Although you are here first, according to the rules, whoever claims it first owns it." Dongmu saw where the silver egg was and, in a flash, used all his energy to dash towards it. "No, don't." Hansen reached out and attempted to grab Dongmu. Seeing Hansen, Dongmu used his strength to go even faster. When he reached his prize, he hugged the egg with open arms. Egg. Dongmu cried out as letting out a final death cry. Brutally electrified, all his hair spiked upwards. He fell to the floor hard, his hands outstretched as if he was still hugging the egg. He seemed to have been paralyzed by the electric shock. Hansen smiled as he walked to catch up with Dongmu. He shook his head and said, "I didn't want to stop you from getting the egg. I was just trying to grab you and prevent this from happening. I was trying to be nice." Dongmu stared at Hansen disapprovingly, not believing him. Hansen watched Dongmu struggle to sit up and wanted to laugh. Earlier, he had in fact misled Dongmu, because he wanted to find out if there still was electricity coming out of the egg after he had touched it. Hansen received his answer. But it was now evident that this egg was no ordinary egg. It clearly was a powerful one. Poor Yi Dongmu was taking a long time to recover from the shock, but he could hardly blame Han Sen. It was his own fault for rushing towards it, after all. I had never heard of the Silver Eye Ice Snake King possessing electric skills. I thought it could only inflict frostbite. How can this egg have such strong electricity? Han Sen walked around the egg a few times, observing it. The pattern on the egg seemed to have been highlighted again after it shocked Yi Dongmu, but the light was once again beginning to fade. Mr. Yi, I believe we are going to have to crack this egg open. Otherwise, we will be unable to eat it. I am weak compared to you, so maybe you should go ahead and do it. Han Sen turned to look at Yi Dongmu again, watching as he struggled to move his limbs. Yi Dongmu gave Han Sen a disdainful look, as if to say, "Do you think I am a fool?" Han Sen did not dare to try to smash the egg, as the electricity given by a small touch was painful enough. If he went to smash it, and the electricity inside was unleashed, what if it turned him into charcoal? Seeing Yi Dongmu still unable to move, he didn't dare go first. He started to think how he might get it open. If he returned to the Alliance, he could get himself a strong pair of insulated gloves. But he was a long way from there, and the electricity in the egg seemed unstable. Perhaps the gloves wouldn't provide much help anyway, and since he didn't own a pair himself, he would have to go to the hassle of buying one. But who would have guessed there would be an egg emitting such crazy amounts of electricity in such a place? Han Sen hadn't prepared for this scenario, so his options were limited. If he did decide to return, Han Sen didn't want to leave the egg behind, either. Mr. Yi, if we have come all this way, there's no way we can return empty-handed. Are you sure you wouldn't mind trying again? Han Sen wanted to convince Yi Dongmu to give the egg another try. Nope, but I'll watch you give it a go. Yi Dongmu didn't move, and continued to sit there. His face was pale, suggesting the electricity had injured him significantly. If you aren't willing to give it a shot, then of course I won't. But if neither of us are willing to touch it, then being here is a waste of time. While both of them were talking, a cracking noise could be heard coming from the egg. They both jumped and looked at it. They saw the half-human tall egg had a few cracks on it. Somehow, it was beginning to open by itself. Han Sen and Yi Dongmu both jumped up and anxiously watched the egg open. If the egg was cracking because they had touched it earlier, then it was okay. But if this was a natural occurrence, then they would be in trouble. Another cracking noise sounded, and a splintered ravine of cracks now ran the length of the egg. Han Sen and Yi Dongmu took a few steps back, watching the silver and metal egg with high alert. It was only an egg, but it discharged great torrents of electricity. It certainly wasn't normal. If a creature did reside inside the egg, even as a newborn, they suspected it might possess terrible, powerful abilities. Crack, crack. More and more cracks began to run down the sides of the egg, until a plate of the shell was smacked open. Inside, a fluffy silver head was trying to poke its way out of its shell. The eyes of the creature were only half open. The creature was attempting to claw its way out of the eggshell. It's not a snake. Han Sen and Yi Dongmu both froze, having believed it was going to be a baby of the Silver Eye Ice Snake King. This was not what they had expected. The creature that was trying to pry its way out was coated in a silver fur, and it had long, sharp ears. It was a little fox, and its eyes burned with the passion of a phoenix. The small animal finally managed to break free and leave the egg. Although it was freshly hatched, it was about the same size as an adult tanuki. Its fur was lush and full, and a majestic tail swept the shell behind it. It looked as if it had been built to thrive in the harsh, icy environment it had been born in. Flop. After exiting the eggshell, the creature was unable to stand steady. Yi Dongmu then seemed to move, dagger in hand. Like a gust of wind, he started rushing towards the weakened animal that was still spread out on the ground in pain. He targeted one of its half-open eyes and attempted to kill it. But Han Sen took a few steps back. Instead, this scene was all too familiar for him. When the Golden Roarer was born, he had played the role Yi Dongmu was now fulfilling. Ding! Yi Dongmu was a talented assassin, and although his attacks were unpredictable, they were lethal. The tip of his dagger had been driven directly into the silver fox's eyelid, but the knife was stopped in its place, its bloodlust greeted by the sound of hammered steel. The eyelid was made of metal. Howl! The silver fox cried out, but Yi Dongmu was undeterred, and he tried to push the blade in with greater strength. But before he could do anything more, a lightning bolt arced to the dagger in his hands, and from the metal of his weapon, an incredible current of electricity surged through his body. The silver fox fell onto the floor again, while Yi Dongmu was flung away. So strong was the current that even his armor had been blackened. The white wings that he wore were now charred, with their plumage reduced to a few sparse, smoldering feathers. This time the damage was even greater. When Yi Dongmu hit the ground, he lay crumpled, unable to move, and had Han Sen not been able to detect his heartbeat, he would have thought him dead. Holy smokes, this thing is the child of a super creature. Han-sen felt a chill run down his spine as he confirmed that this creature was indeed not of the sacred blood variety. Yi Dongmu possessed great power, and with the force he had thrust into his dagger strike, there should have been no way the creature could remain damaged if it was just a newborn sacred blood creature. When Han-sen fought against the Golden Roar, the same thing had happened. But the first shelter's super creatures only dealt brute, raw damage. They lacked the skills and intricacies of other super creatures Han-sen had later come to know. And when he did go against the Golden Roar, he hadn't been as badly hurt as Yi Dongmu was now. The previously docile silver fox was now angry. It pulled itself onto its paws and quickly followed his aggressor, running to where Yi Dongmu now lay crumpled on the ground. It seemed like the silver fox wanted to reverse what had just happened. Han-sen ran over to the severely injured Yi Dongmu and attempted to pull him away. Yi Dongmu was one of his biggest clients, and one who never haggled for a bargain. If he was to die here in such a matter, that would be a bad break for his business. Han-sen pulled Yi Dongmu to the trail that led outside. The silver fox attempted to pursue its intruders, but it had only just been born, and was still weak and unable to fully control its body. So when it went after them, it could barely walk straight, let alone maintain the pace it would have needed to keep up with them. Han-sen did not dare do anything aggressive towards the silver fox. He only dragged Yi Dongmu to the exit. He dreaded the thought of making himself the enemy of a super creature's baby. Upon exiting the ice cave, he dragged Yi Dongmu for a distance of 10 miles. Looking around to determine whether he was being followed, he thought it a good time to observe the severity of Yi Dongmu's wounds. It was very bad. In several areas, his skin had frayed and torn open in response to the power of the electric shock. In many places, his skin had turned black and green. It was fortunate he was wearing armor, for if he hadn't, he would have died the second he was shocked. Although he wasn't dead, he was critically injured. I am such a nice guy, saving you from certain death. I'll keep you to this, so that you can repay the debt sometime in the future. Han-sen applied some medicine to the wounds of the incapacitated Yi Dongmu. As he tended to his injuries, he said, "It's a shame that I'm being forced to use my pricier salves on you, as well. When you wake up, I won't hesitate to give you the bill." Yi Dongmu came to screaming, flinching from the pain. Although later effective, application of the medicine Han-sen was using stung terribly. "Stop screaming. Aren't you a man of some bravery? If you can't suffer this, how can you expect to be a person of great deeds in the future?" Han-sen's bedside manner left a little to be desired. "You didn't even give me some anesthetic before you poured that hellfire on my wounds. Why don't you give it a go, eh? We'll see whether you scream, asshole." Yi Dongmu's face was pale with the pain, and his lips trembled. Yi Dongmu screamed again. He grabbed Han-sen's leg and bit down on it. When Han-sen was in the ice cave, he had put his armor away when he heard Yi Dongmu first enter. He felt a savage pain from every tooth that now dug into his calf, and he couldn't help but accompany Yi Dongmu in writhing in agony. "Let go of me. Are you a goddamn shark? You just bite and don't let go." Han-sen pushed his biter's head, but the pain Yi Dongmu was suffering from was too much, and every aspect of him rattled. Afraid he might end up biting his own tongue off, he tried biting into the nearest item he could, which just happened to be Han-sen's leg. Han-sen continued crying in pain, so he slapped Yi Dongmu's head numerous times. When Yi Dongmu finally let go, he rolled over on the icy ground. It was as if his entire body had been drained of energy, and he was left gasping and wheezing on the floor for recovery. When Han-sen looked at his leg, he saw blood seep from 2 teeth marks. Just as he was about to shout at the man beside him, he witnessed a silver shadow heading his way. It was the silver fox. Han-sen's face changed. The silver fox had only just been born, but it was already so quick. What's more, it was accelerating as it got nearer. Before long, it stood just 5 meters from them. For a brief moment, Han-sen thought about summoning his wings to escape. But the silver fox didn't do anything. It just stood there watching Han-sen with its phoenix-like eyes. Han-sen's heart was chilled, and he took a few steps back, removing himself from Yi Dongmu's proximity. He thought to himself, "What are you looking at me for? The person who attacked you is right there." But the silver fox didn't look at Yi Dongmu at all. Its eyes just traced Han-sen's every move, which scared him. As Han-sen moved to the left, his steps were accompanied by the silver fox's gaze. Han-sen's heart was thumping, and he said, "Oh no. Are this creature's eyes so weak that it can't recognize who harmed it?" Yi Dongmu was still on the floor, but then all of a sudden, he quickly summoned another pair of purple wings and flew off into the sky. "Thanks so much, I'll make sure to pay you back later," Yi Dongmu said as he flew away. Han-sen was angry and said to himself, "What an ungrateful son of a troll. If I hadn't saved you earlier, you'd be fox puppy chow." And now you leave me here all alone." The silver fox continued to stare at Han Sen, but did so with a puzzled expression. Han Sen did not feel that the silver fox was being aggressive and intended to kill him. But it was natural for creatures to do this, and such habits were not easily hidden. Still, Han Sen knew that the fox did not intend to murder him. But as the fox stood there, staring at him, Han Sen couldn't help but feel uneasy. After all, a creature's whim can change in an instant. What if it became hungry in the next instant and decided to use Han Sen for a snack? "Okay, little guy, your bones have grown really strong, and your face has a holy aura. You'll undoubtedly grow to become something quite powerful in the future. But if you want to eat a sacred blood creature or something. Not me. My flesh is cheap and lacks the nutrients a young and healthy fox such as yourself would require." As Han Sen tried to appease the silver fox, he slowly stepped backwards. But every step back that Han Sen took, the silver fox stepped forwards. When Han Sen went left, it went right. The way it stared seemed to suggest that it recognized him. "Oh, what are you following me for?" Han Sen's mind raced, wondering what exactly was going on. All of a sudden, he thought, cats and dogs love to chase things. People would often throw balls for cats and dogs to catch or chase. The fox wasn't too different from a cat or a dog. Perhaps it shared the same habit. Han Sen rummaged through his pockets, but was unable to find a ball. All he could find was a fist-sized bottle. Inside it, however, was an elixir worth tens of thousands. This was the sort of medicine he wasn't willing to spend on Yi Dongmu. With his own life on the line, however, he just bit down and lobbed the bottle away. Han Sen was only trying to see what would happen before the silver fox thought of killing him. As he had hoped, the silver fox watched where the bottle went, sprang to its feet and chased after it. Han Sen was delighted, as he hadn't been sure whether it would actually work. With the time he'd just bought himself, he immediately turned and started running. The last thing he wanted to do was displease a super creature, and after seeing what had happened to Yi Dongmu, he was aware of the stakes. But Han Sen hadn't run far when he saw the silver fox running across the white snow. Despite running as fast as he could, the silver fox was able to catch up with him with ease. In the silver fox's mouth, the creature was holding the bottle Han Sen had thrown away. Han Sen was flabbergasted at how quickly the silver fox had caught up with him, and knew that his own running speed was nowhere close enough. Now he was seriously considering the prospect of summoning his wings and taking to the skies. But the next second, Han Sen gave up that idea. Han Sen stopped running, feeling hopeless. The silver fox also stopped and stood just a meter away. It placed the medicine bottle on the ground near Han Sen's feet. "Good boy." Han Sen forced a smile. He wanted to pat the silver fox on his head and stroke it in congratulations, but he only stretched his arms out at half length before freezing. This was a super creature. If he reached out his hand and the silver fox did not think kindly of his approach and got angry, he would likely lose his arm. Seeing Han Sen stop moving, the silver fox walked closer. It gently approached his leg and began licking it. Han Sen was so terrified that he almost kicked the silver fox in the face. But when he looked down, he noticed that the silver fox was licking him where Yi Dongmu had bit him. Although the bleeding had stopped, the wound remained. But when the silver fox started licking it, something strange happened. With his own two eyes, Han Sen witnessed his wounds mysteriously vanish. He froze, almost unable to believe that the silver fox was healing him. The silver fox took a few steps back and, like a cute little girl, stood to look up at him with a tilted head. Han Sen was perplexed, and all at once, he felt his entire past understanding of creatures had not only been subverted but flipped entirely on its head. He tried reaching out his hand again and thought to stroke the silver fox's head. But still, a fear nagged at him not to do it. His hand froze in place once more. But then the silver fox elegantly approached and actively placed its own head into the palms of Han Sen's hand. It closed its eyes and rubbed its head there, seeming to enjoy it. Is this thing really a wild creature? Han Sen wasn't quite sure what to say, so he engaged the silver fox himself. With that same hand, he began stroking its head. The silver fox was like a little girl, in the way that it was cute when Han Sen stroked its head. Just seeing the creature made you want to hug it. No, foxes are cunning. Is this thing just tricking me into hugging it? Maybe it's making me lower my guard, so it can attack me before I get a chance to defend myself. Han Sen told himself. This was a super creature, after all, so he couldn't afford to drop his guard. But after Han Sen stroked the silver fox a few more times, the creature walked between his legs and used its body to rub against them. It genuinely seemed as if it wanted some love. Although it was docile and friendly at this point in time, There was no guarantee it would always be like this. If the silver fox turned violent after Han Sen returned home with it, it would be a disaster. Across the ice fields, no one could bear the wrath of a super creature, and Han Sen was taken back to the image of the blue seahorse that had burned down the seabed shelter. That gave him a chill. I can't bring it back. There's no way I'd be able to bring it back. Han Sen watched the cute silver fox sit lovingly in his arms but had to resist. Though it hurt him to do so, he returned it to the ground. Little fox, it's not that I don't want to bring you with me. And if I was on my own I would. I just can't risk bringing you back in the presence of others. If something happened, it wouldn't just be my problem. You should go home, Han Sen told the silver fox, then turned around and left. But the silver fox didn't listen, and continued following and mimicking every step Han Sen took. If he stepped forward, it did too. If Han Sen stopped, it would too. Looking back at the silver fox that refused to be left behind, Han Sen picked him up once more. Like a little cat, he dug into Han Sen's chest and was the cutest thing. Fine, I will take you to the Crystal Palace. If something happens there, at least you won't be harming anyone else. Han Sen brought out his wings, and with the silver fox in his arms, took to the skies. He'd have to hide the silver fox before meeting the evolvers, too. The tall tales that might be spun out of this turn of events would be dizzying. I'll just leave them to wait where they are, then. They are the ones that chose not to accompany me, after all. There is no harm in leaving them in the freezing cold for a little while longer. Han Sen clutched the silver fox tightly as he flew higher and higher to leave the area. As Han Sen prepared to fly towards the ice lake, he saw a multitude of ice snakes jump out from the snow in the ice valley. It was strange, the place had been empty before. There was an extra large ice snake amongst them, as well, and his entire body was scaled in silver. It gleamed like the snow, and it was 100 meters long. It was a terrible sight. The silver-eyed ice snake king. Han Sen was shocked. When he entered the valley and traversed it earlier, he had caught no sight of it. Where did it come from? Han Sen's heart jumped, and he returned down to the snow valley. But when he returned, he saw the Snake King and its clan return deep beneath the snow. I suppose it is because of you. Han Sen landed on the snow valley, but he could not now glimpse the faintest shadow of an ice snake. Even the king itself had disappeared. The silver fox remained in Han Sen's arms, pretending to be asleep. He wasn't sure whether it understood what he was saying, or if the creature just didn't care. Calmly, it just wagged its tail. He flew outside the ice valley again and put the silver fox down on the peak of a snowy mountain. Then he saw the ice snakes return to the surface. You wait for me here, okay? Han Sen told the silver fox and then flew back towards the valley. This time, the silver fox didn't follow Han Sen. It stood on top of the mountain, watching Han Sen descend into the valley. Han Sen was going solo towards the giant pit of snakes, but this time, they did not return to below the surface. What's more, a legion of snakes leapt up and attempted to thwart his airborne descent. The Snake King's eyes were like braziers of silver light, staring at Han Sen. The beast spread open its own wings, and the two horns on its head shone like beacons. Like some deadly creature of ancient history, it charged towards Han Sen. They really must have escaped due to the silver fox's presence. Han Sen put away his wings and hit the snow with treading cloud, reverting to his previous attempt to grab the Snake King's attention and draw it to the valley's entrance. To go up against such a giant monster, Han Sen lacked the faith to battle it on his own, not to mention the amount of other smaller snakes he would have to deal with at the same time. So Han Sen settled for his original plan of leaving the Snake King out and giving the evolvers something to do. No matter how bad they were, he could at least get them to deal with any smaller snakes trying to prevent the slaying of their leader. Although they were afraid of them, if he led them out of the valley, the snow wouldn't be thick enough to cloak them. In such conditions, the evolvers could take on the snakes with far greater ease. Han Sen was unsure whether the Snake King had been suppressed by the presence of a silver fox in recent times because its insane temper was far beyond Han Sen's expectations. Without reprieve or thought, it mindlessly went after Han Sen. Its speed was surprising, with its silver wings allowing it to lash, twirl, and snap its way through the sky in its pursuit of Han Sen. Its mouth was perpetually open, ready to gobble up its desired prey. Han Sen was no sluggard, though, as he dodged the attempted bites with ease. The faint trail he left in the snow made a zigzag, however, as he kept dodging the Snake King and its minions. Before long, he had made it through to outside the snow valley. Wang Liang and the other evolvers outside the valley were still waiting in nervous anticipation to see Han Sen return. He's been gone too long. I bet you he was killed by the Snake King. If that were true, how come we have not heard anything? I bet he didn't even see the Snake King. It would probably be best to wait a little longer. If we leave now, and he does indeed return, we won't be able to explain our desertion. But he's been gone for so long. There is no way he'll be coming back now, after all this time. Just wait a bit longer. If we've waited this long already, what does it matter if we wait a little more? The day is gone, anyway. While everyone was talking, they suddenly heard movement from the valley. When they went to look, all of their mouths dropped to the ground. They saw Han-sen running like a madman out of the valley, and behind him, a monstrous sea of snakes flying, twirling, writhing, and slithering after him. In the middle, one that looked like a dragon was in the hottest pursuit. Its wings were outstretched as it tried to capture Han-sen, and each snap missed him only by a second. The insane sight sent their pulses racing in fear. Han-sen drew nearer to the valley's exit. Wang Liang hurried the group into battle formation. They were ready to fight against the Snake King. The party was composed of elite evolvers. Some of them were currently serving in the army, whereas some others had retired. Having all shared military experience, they were hardened warriors with phenomenal abilities in battle. They did not fear the fight to come. After he had established their formation, Han-sen had just about brought the Snake King and its following of lesser ice snakes out of the valley. Without the deep snow to hide their bodies, however, they all looked like colossal foes. When the battle began, Han-sen ceased running. He summoned his ghost-pawed claws and started to attack the Snake King. Dong! Han-sen dodged the gaping maw of the silver eye ice Snake King, and with the ghost-pawed claws, countered to slice off one of its silver scales. The Snake King's silver flesh was too thick to fully pierce, however, and all that was inflicted upon it were 3 scratch marks. They weren't proper cuts, and were far from critical, life-threatening wounds. Without the cover of the snow, the ordinary and mutant ice snakes were unable to compete with the elites. In a great reckoning, countless ice snakes were slain. As each snake dyed the earth a sickly red, their corpses were sent flying with great force. Now, the 10 evolvers had surrounded the Snake King. The beast was fierce, wild, and mad. When it lifted its rear, it lashed around to smash numerous glaciers. Given how crazy it was, Han-sen and his fellow fighters did not dare to fight the creature head-on. Face to face. Giant creatures were born powerfully, and substantially outperformed humans. The silver eye ice Snake King's scales were solid, and its flesh was thick. Although Han-sen and his party gave the beast a series of strong attacks, none seemed likelier to kill the beast than the last. Instead, all they did was amplify the Snake King's rage to even greater degree. Seeing the Snake King behaving like a sordid monster from some ancient tale, Han-sen felt gloomy. The ghost-pawed claws were too short, and didn't seem viable to fight a creature as large as that. If he had a longer weapon, perhaps then he would stand a chance. Right now, though, Han-sen was glad to have brought along Wang Liang and the rest of the elites. Had he not, he didn't think he could do anything or have the opportunity to fight the Snake King without the interference of countless lesser ice snakes. You guys go on ahead, I'll take a break, Han-sen shouted to Wang Liang as he left the battlefield. Wang Liang thought to himself, we've come here to help you slay the Snake King. We're risking our lives enough, and now you run off. You're obscene. As he cursed Han-sen, Wang Liang caught a glimpse of a certain flame. A red firebird that looked like a phoenix appeared, drawn from Han-sen's body. The flames were scorching hot, and they rose high into the air. In just a moment, the flames had encircled the entire area. Wang Liang noticed that his and his party's beast soul powers had been greatly increased. Though he was surprised, he was very glad and said, Halo Beast Soul, and for such a large effective range. I wonder if it is a sacred blood beast soul. The beast soul powers of everyone else in the party were also greatly increased, and it felt to them that the fight had become easier. The pressure had most certainly eased up, and they look extremely pleased. Han-sen left the desert bird behind on the battlefield and continued on his way, but he made sure to keep his eye on how the others did, as they battled the Snake King in his absence. Of the 10 of them, 6 of them were using a sacred blood weapon. 3 of the 6 were employing heavy weapons. There was a lance, a great axe, and a hammer. These 3 posed the greatest threat to the Snake King, but still, the scales were too hard and they could not damage it. It's only a sacred blood class creature, it cannot be indestructible. It must possess a weak point somewhere. Han-sen watched the Snake King's every movement, but no weak point could be found. The silver scales could endure 10 strikes from the evolvers, and with such defense, there was no need for it to move around and protect certain parts of its body. It could bear the brunt of any attack. An evolver was unable to dodge in time and was struck by the Snake King's tail. He was sent flying for over 10 meters and roughly crashed into the ground. He spat blood from his mouth, but the hit he had taken was not life-threatening. Quickly, he brought himself back up to his feet. Han-sen jumped back into fray, filling in the spot left by the hurt evolver. Boss, the Snake King's scales are too tough. It's impossible for us to kill it. Why don't we retreat and think of something else? Wang Liang shouted across the battlefield as he continued to engage with the enemy. Han Sen, however, did not respond. He continued to fight the Snake King, while paying extra attention to the movements of the enemy. He wanted to wait a while longer so that the poison of the ghost pod claws might take effect. But there was no change in the Snake King's behavior, and it didn't seem to work. It was as powerful as ever. The flesh and bones of the Snake King are tough. Even if I use Yin Force, it would probably be useless. Perhaps I could use Yin Force on its head and damage its brain. Han Sen thought to himself. If he truly attempted striking the Snake King's head, this would be a perilous move. One mistake would result in a big bite, courtesy of the Snake King's cavernous mouth. The meter-long, frostbite-primed snake teeth seemed as if they could slice right through and kill you before the frostbite could even take effect. Pang! The Snake King twirled, lashing away one more revolver. So powerful was the strike that the longsword was wholly bent out of shape. This beast was a fearsome thing. Boss, we must fall back. We cannot slay this creature. A voice called out from one of the evolvers. Han Sen responded, keep fighting. Everybody must obey my commands. If any of you choose not to, don't bother returning to the shelter. Go find Dong Lin and explain your desertion. Wang Liang, move to your left by 3 meters and attack its left side. Zhao Qian, move right by 2 meters, forward 1 meter and strike its right wing. Han Sen barked the orders. Wang Liang had little choice but to listen and follow Han Sen's orders. The two who had been given instructions, however, weren't exactly sure what their boss was hoping to achieve. The formation they were in was the result of much practice and perfect synchronicity between the elite evolvers. Never had they been issued a command that altered this formation. And no matter how smart they thought Han Sen was, they didn't think he could randomly come up with a brand new and better formation, and nor did they want him to. Because these changes could result in an accident, it was now down to an individual's talent. The daily training and practice of blocking, dodging, and striking were more important than ever. No immediate command such as this could put them in a better position than they already were. But Han Sen was different. The way he viewed things, the men were just pawns on a chessboard. His use of the Dongsu Sutra was increasing, and this allowed him to control them as if he were a game player. Earlier, when Han Sen had quit the fight for a brief while, he didn't just stop to observe the beast and try to find its weak points. He was also observing the skills and abilities of Wang Liang and his people. He had to gain a greater understanding of their powers to be able to issue the right commands. At first, Wang Liang was forced to listen to Han Sen's command despite lacking any desire to, but his opinion quickly changed. And so too did the opinions of the rest of the party. For when their formation changed, their new positions made it considerably easier to fight the Snake King. They were all further from danger, and no one received another blow from the Snake King. They were beginning to really admire Han Sen. They all used to be soldiers, so they were familiar with the qualities and traits that it took to be a brilliant commander. But in regards to Han Sen, they had never seen someone command others so well, and in such a calm and informal manner. It was unbelievable. Wang Liang and the other evolvers greatly admired Han Sen. No one they had served under could command with the talent he did. Battles were instant, moment-to-moment affairs that morphed and changed every second. To command people ahead of time in such a way was remarkable, because if anyone else had issued commands, by the time the evolvers performed what they were told, the opportunity to do anything more would be gone. But Han Sen had just commanded 10 people with amazing efficiency. He was quick in issuing his commands, that was to be expected, but his words were never rushed. Taking such impeccable orders relieved Wang Liang and his people from a great deal of stress, so they were able to do far more. Wang Liang and his people admired Han Sen with the respect usually reserved for a religious deity. In the army, powerful people typically gain the respect of others, but for genuine admiration, one had to command others calmly and with grace, leading their troops on to victory. At last, the Snake King's head had practically been delivered to Han Sen. This was his long-awaited opportunity. He jumped to the Snake King's head with a fist fueled by a power that could shatter a mountain. With his yin force, Han Sen used his fist to drill inside the monster's head. The damage he inflicted to the skull of the Snake King was the critical hit he had been waiting for, and it was terribly injured as a result. Roar! The Snake King screamed and writhed in agony. When he lowered its head, its body's shape was all wrong. Although the creature looked just as strong and fierce as before, its composure and form was not as solid as before the hit. Han Sen's heart was gladdened, thrilled that the yin force seemed to work. The blast must have rattled the Snake King's brain, ruining its form. Han Sen continued to issue his commands to Wang Liang and the other evolvers to fight. Before long, the Snake King's head was in front of Han Sen once more. He delivered another yin force punch. Following the second hit, it was as if the Snake King was drunk, as it began to lose control of its body. Wang Liang was surprised at how things seemed to be turning out, and he too was happy. Now, feeling assured of victory, and under the impeccable leadership of Han Sen, they put even greater efforts into the fight. Their admiration of the man did nothing but rise. Peng, when Han Sen struck the Snake King's head for the third time, the beast could no longer resist. It collapsed to the ground, writhing, twisting, and contorting in pain. Please give me your beast soul. I have to get a beast soul. Hallelujah. May the sweet mother of baby Jesus bless me. Han Sen was cheering in his heart and soul. Sacred blood creature hunted, Silver Eye Snake King. The beast's soul has been acquired. Consume its flesh to obtain a random numeric amount of sacred blood geno points, ranging from 0 to 10. Hearing that sound, Han Sen wanted to scream aloud in merriment. I love you, Saint Mary. But he only shouted in his heart. Once the Snake King had been killed, the other ice snakes did not want to give their lives to fight the evolvers. Quickly, they raced back to the Ice Valley. The results of the battle in which they had just been victorious were strewn everywhere, with countless corpses of ice snakes and the Snake King itself. There were even a few mutant-class creatures piled up. Following the battle, they each received a couple of ice snake beast souls. Although most were an ordinary class, a lucky few received mutant beast souls. They had killed far more ice snakes than they had expected, but their haul of loot was their greatest ever. I will leave them for you, but go and find someone to help transfer the bodies of the Snake King and the ice snakes back, Han Sen hurriedly said, and then left. Wang Liang and the rest of the evolvers had no problem obeying Han Sen's commands, because his leadership abilities had earned every ounce of their faith, trust, and respect. Han Sen walked in a circle, returning to the top of the snowy mountain. The little silver fox was still patiently awaiting his return, and its hopeful eyes made Han Sen wonder whether the little thing would have waited there forever if he had not come back. Seeing Han Sen return, the silver fox elegantly approached his legs again. The big fluffy tail hooked his legs like it had before, and the fox rubbed his head up and down against them again, too. Han Sen was beginning to grow fond of the silver fox. He secretly wished that it was just an ordinary creature, though, so he could have it by his side with relative ease. Han Sen fed a black crystal to the Silver Eye Snake King, and then brought the silver fox back with him. On his way, he encountered several other humans and passed by them nervously. He held the fox extra tight, afraid that it might attack someone. It was fortunate, then, that the silver fox gave no particular reaction at all. That put Han Sen at ease, for at least now, the silver fox was behaving unlike any other super creature, and it didn't seem likely to attack humans on sight. Back inside the Crystal Palace, the silver fox acted its usual self. It remained calm even when at close proximity to Zero, who was later able to hug the fox. The silver fox seemed indeed quite tame. The ice snake and Snake King flesh that Wang Liang delivered was split evenly between Han Sen and each evolver. Everyone received an equal amount, which brought in the mutual respect within the group, ensuring that they could work together in the future. Han Sen prepared a whole meal for himself with the Snake King flesh he had received, and when he was full, gave the rest to the angels. The size of the Snake King was indeed too big, and if he spent the whole month eating it, he wasn't sure if he'd receive a single sacred blood geno point from it. With such uncertainty, he didn't bother to spend too much time eating it. Han Sen had now returned to what was previously known as the Black God Shelter due to a report he had received of someone looking for him. Han Sen went to meet this person, and was surprised to see that it was Yi Dongmu. He hadn't seen him in quite a while, but his injuries had now fully healed and his vicious wounds were no longer visible. You don't need to thank me. I was just trying to help. You can let it go. Of course, if you really want to reward me, I'd gladly accept the sum of a few billion in cash, Han Sen said. There is an opportunity coming up that will allow you to make some sweet money. Are you up for it? Sure. What sort of money are we talking about? I am going to learn a hyper-geno art, and if you become my training partner, I'll pay you. Yi Dongmu explained the deal as straight as an arrow. Why me? Han Sen was now quite curious. Because you are really good at assassinations, and your power is tremendous. Yi Dongmu said. You have good taste. I like that you are honest. And, sure, I can be your training partner, but I'm an honest man, too. I must tell you that I don't come cheap. Han Sen was interested in which hyper-geno art Yi Dongmu was looking to learn. They were both accomplished when it came to their learned assassination skills, but if Yi Dongmu was serious enough about learning this skill, then perhaps it would prove useful for Han Sen, too. A problem that can be solved with money is not a problem, Yi Dongmu stated sagely. Yi Dongmu had the money it took to say something like this. Although Han Sen asked for a really high price, Yi Dongmu didn't even blink and agreed. He didn't even try to haggle or bargain with Han Sen. Han Sen then brought Yi Dongmu to the Black God Shelter's arena. He really wanted the hyper-geno art he was looking to learn. Yi Dongmu was still using a dagger. The way that he would strike was near untraceable, and it was obvious he had a grasp of the very essence of assassination skills. He had come a long way since Han Sen had first seen him in the first shelter. What Yi Dongmu was learning was a skill to slash shockingly fast. The power and speed burst out in under a second, so it was almost like a duplication of the tornado knife skill. And Yi Dongmu was naturally powerful. The force put into each blisteringly fast strike was remarkable. This is some powerful skill. Han Sen took a few steps back and dodged Yi Dongmu's dagger. Han Sen himself was highly talented when it came to assassination skills, but he had a great mind too, which allowed for him to sense any incoming attacks. If it had been anyone else, the dagger would have found a new home in their belly. I still have a long way to go. Yi Dongmu wasn't yet satisfied with the skill, and he made sure he kept training with Han Sen. Han Sen had met a lot of people who loved to fight over the years, but none were as crazy as Yi Dongmu. If Han Sen had not requested a break so that he could eat, he assumed Yi Dongmu would have been practicing with him all day, every day. From what Han Sen could see, Yi Dongmu's skill was already really powerful. Not many evolvers would be able to dodge his first strike, but still, Yi Dongmu was not completely satisfied. Do you have to put in this much effort? Are you that desperate to master it? Han Sen couldn't help but ask as he ate. I have to. I have no choice but to perfect this skill if I am to beat Coin. Yi Dongmu's face looked solemn. The reason why Yi Dongmu was trying to learn this skill so much was so that he could beat Han Sen himself. Han Sen looked at Yi Dongmu curiously, and with a look that almost suggested pity. In his heart, he thought, you could have looked for someone else to train with, yet you came to me. And now I know all about your secret skill and what to expect if we fight. No matter how hard you train, you will never beat me, Yi Dongmu. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.